But if you're in terrible shape, you don't have to do much at all to get big benefit. And I think that's important when you have somebody with an injury or an illness. You'll say, okay, you're not in very good shape because you've had to be out of this. You don't have to train extra hard to try to catch up, because you don't have to train very hard when you're out of shape to get better. Go back and take it fairly easy. And then the other principle is one of accelerating setbacks. When you're not training very hard, not much goes wrong. And it gradually goes up, and at some point, about the time this one's plateauing up here, this one's climbing rapidly. That says you work out here in this intensity, your chances of a setback are increasing rapidly. It might be an injury or an illness, or it might be just a lack of interest anymore if I'm killing myself and it's no fun. So where you need to train, in my mind, is in this window here between these green lines, because you don't have any problems and you get big benefits. Sure, this may not be good enough to make it to the Olympics. Maybe you have to go to here, but you're not going to go out there for long, because you know while you're out there, chances of something going wrong are starting to accelerate a little bit. So you can't say how much work is this. You know, for one person, this window here might be 20 to 30 miles a week, and for another it might be 120 to 150 miles a week. I mean, you got to know your athletes to know what they can handle without killing them. Here's what we started with, somewhere back about 50 years ago. A friend of mine, we were both in modern pentathlon, and we both ran the same time. And his VO2 max was 73 and mine was 63. But we ran the same time. And I was running the lab, and I thought, what's the problem here? Why doesn't he beat me worse? Or sometimes I beat him. So I measured him running at 6-minute mile pace, and he used 59 milliliters per kg at 6-minute mile pace, and I used 51. I was more economical than he was. Now you divide that 59 by his max, and you get 81%. So he's running 6-minute mile pace at 81% of his max. You divide my 51 by my 63, I'm running my max at 81% of my max. So we run the same, because my economy makes up for my lack of a high max. And so I drew this curve out, and I dropped this down to this number right here, and I call that velocity of the VO2 max. And by the way, I invented that term. People use it all over the world now. It's called VO2 max. And that's what counts right there. That counts. Not this, not the economy, not the max, this, the combination of those two. Because that tells you how fast you can race for about 10 or 12 minutes. And you can race at different fractions of that max for different amounts of time. Here's 3 women I coached, or I didn't coach them all, I'm sorry, I tested. This girl had a 73 max and terrible economy. This one had a 69 max and kind of good economy, and this one had a 60 VO2 max and really good economy. Here's their 3K times, 908, 907, 904. This girl with a 60 max, some coaches would have probably told her to go take up table tennis because you're not an endurance runner. And she was our national champion in the 10K. 60 max. I tested a female swimmer who won the Olympic gold medal in the 400 meters. Her max was 56. Well, she must have been told many times to give this sport up. You're not an endurance athlete. You can't do that. You can't rely, I mean, physiology testing is great, particularly when you can test the same person over time because you see what's happening to that person. But to compare them to other people is very, very difficult. It's really, really tough to do. So this is what counts right down here. Their velocity of VO2 max were 328, 329, and 331 meters per minute, and those were their 3K times right there. And what we've done over the years is we've come up with a mean economy curve that represents hundreds and hundreds of people we've tested. And there's that curve right there. And there's the formula for that. You can take the time you've run at a certain speed, or a speed of running, and you multiply that velocity of running 0.000104 times that velocity squared plus 0.182258 times that velocity minus 4.6. That'll give you the VO2 associated with that. So it's that simple. So what we tend to do for calculations and training is we force everybody's economy onto that common economy curve. Somebody with poor economy and a 70 max, somebody with low max and really great economy, we'll force them both to have an in the middle VO2 max, but we call that a VDOT. So we just made that up when we did the computer programs. We called, instead of say we're not calculating your VO2 max, we're calculating a VDOT. And where we came up with that number, as some of you may know, when you say VO2, there's a dot over the V that means it's a 1 minute volume of, the volume is a 1 minute value. So you call it a V.O2 max. So we just shortened it to VDOT. It's not supposed to be your VO2 max. It's supposed to be a pseudo VO2 max. But you can calculate it quite accurately. And it comes out. So here's some of the things that knowing your VO2 max, what it'll tell you. You can run for about 5 minutes at 110% of that speed. And you can run for 30 minutes at about 93% of that speed. And your threshold pace is about 88% of that speed. So if you know that speed, you can calculate anything you want. Any speed that you want, including race times.
Sorry, that's similar to the lactate threshold.
No, this is different than lactate, yeah. I'll show you the lactate. Let me just show you some more stuff about economy. Here's swimmers. Here's the group of swimmers I tested, all these people. These were young age group swimmers, about age 12. And these were elite women, collegiate women. They were our national champions that year. Their VO2 max were identical. But the economy for these young kids was terrible compared to these. Look at their velocities at VO2 max, how big a difference they were. With swimming, they'll improve their economy, obviously, because technique is such a big deal in swimming. And as you learn better technique, it's going to cost you less energy. Here's swimmers that we tested in open water or in a swimming flume, which is a treadmill, swimming treadmill type of thing. And that they were the least economical in open water. And then in long course, they were in the middle, and in short course, they're better. That's because in a pool, you get to rest on the turns. So it's not going to cost you as much energy to swim, to average a certain speed of swimming as it would in open water where you never get to rest on the turn. I mean, when you turn, sure, you're tucking, you're using some muscles, and you're pushing off the wall, but you got to wait till you slow down the swimming speed to even start swimming. You're just gliding. Those backstrokers in the Olympics, watch them sometime. They're dolphining underwater off the turn for about 15 meters. They're only swimming 35 out of every 50 meters of the pool. Their arms are resting the rest of the time. So they get to rest about 3 seconds on every turn. That's a big difference between swimmers and runners. Swimmers are horizontal. Blood flows really well that way compared to fighting gravity this way, back up to your heart when you're running. And they're water cooled. Heat's a real enemy of runners, but it's not too bad an enemy of swimmers, but they sweat. But the biggest advantage swimmers have, and why they can work so darn hard, is they get to rest on every turn. Just think about it. If you rested 3 seconds on every turn, you swam lengths of the pool in 60 seconds, you're resting 5% of the time. Now, if you speed up to where you're running or swimming lengths of the pool in 30 seconds, and you're still resting 3 on the turn, now you're resting 10% of the time. That says the faster you swim, the greater percent of your time is spent resting. That's why they keep breaking world records all the time. Because if they swim a little faster, they rest more of their total time. And if they could swim lengths of the pool in 3 seconds, they'd rest 100% of their time. And they never swim at all. They'd just turn. No, it's simple. They can train a lot harder than runners. There's no doubt, because they don't get injured as often. That's the big, I mean, 5 hours of training for swimmers is not a big deal at all. It might be a big deal, but they sure do it. Here's a swimming profile. The economy curve of swimmers is much steeper than the economy curve of runners. To where if you drop this much in your VO2 max, you only drop half as much in your speed, in the velocity at max, because of the steepness of this curve. Whereas a runner, if they drop VO2 max by a certain amount, they drop about the same amount in speed. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. Over here, it's about a 1-to-2 ratio. And it makes it simple why swimmers can swim closer to their max speed for an endurance event. Most runners who can run a 4-minute mile can run about